there's two things that cause blisters, and one of them is friction. So the fit of your sock really matters. I'll come back to friction in a second. I want to tell you the other one so you have a model in your head for how this works. The other one is, can you guess it? Moisture. Yes. So that's why if you get your feet wet, way more likely to get a blister. That's what causes it. So we need to combat those two things, and your socks are the line of defense to do it. Hello, Run Elite. Today, we're going to do a little mini training on blisters is what I said, but really what we're talking about is socks. We're going to talk about a couple of different things. I'm going to show you a couple of different kinds of socks. I'm going to show you how they affect your blisters, your comfort, and how they affect plantar fasciitis and compression, and maybe a little bit of performance enhancement. It'll be kind of concise. There's a lot we could say, but really the way that you get it cured is pretty freaking simple. So we're going to keep it pretty simple. Okay. So let's dive into it here. So there's two things that cause blisters, and one of them is friction. So the fit of your sock really matters. I'll come back to friction in a second. I want to tell you the other one so you have a model in your head for how this works. The other one is, can you guess it? It's moisture. Yes. So that's why if you get your feet wet, way more likely to get a blister. That's what causes it. So we need to combat those two things, and your socks are the line of defense to do it. Now here's how they do it. And really, there's three socks on the market that are excellent. They're number 1, 2, and 3 in the industry, and everybody else is a distant 4th and 5th. How do I know this? Well, I used to work for the number 1. This is not a sales pitch. I don't work for them anymore, but they are great socks. I used to work for Features. If you are familiar with them, they make an excellent sock, but the principles here, they apply to the other two, which are basically Belega and Swiftwick. Now, between those three, you basically can cover any need that you have for a sock. There's other great brands out there. Darn Tough in Gingy does something that's really cool, and we'll come back to that. So let's talk about the two causes of blisters. Now, fit is the main one because, like I said, friction causes a blister. So if you just put a regular sock on your foot that's kind of like a cylinder and it wraps around your foot and just hangs out there, well, it may shift, right? So I'm going to hold these up to the camera. I'm going to try to show you some of the technology on these here. So Features does a couple of really cool things, all right? I'm going to put it on my hand for you here so you can see. Now, this is an R on there. That's for your right foot because they're right-left specific. So if you imagine that this is your right foot, underneath your arch, what you're seeing here is some compression. You see that? Now, different companies do different things. Features calls it their elite level compression. Now, that's really important for a couple of things. What it's going to do is going to take it's like a sock puppet, right? It's going to take your foot. I'm trying to make this look like a foot here. And what it's going to do is wrap around here and squeeze the sock just a little bit up onto the arch. Now, it's doing that through this wrap that you can see here. So there's a good sock, a good running sock is going to have a little bit of compression, a little bit. It's not medical compression, just a little bit to hug your foot. And you can see that here. It's a little bit tighter of a weave. There's a little bit more material. It's wrapped a little bit tighter. So it's going to hug to your arch. And when that happens, the sock doesn't move. So you don't get a blister. Okay. Second, this one's really cool. There's something called a no seam toe. And so if you were here in person, I would hold this up to you and I would say, you can kind of see there, you see this seam? Now this seam, if you look at it really closely, there's really no seam there. There's no bump. Now on your shirt, where there's a seam, there's a little bump. Okay. Now if you had that, a cheap sock is going to have this on the toe. There's going to be a little bump. Now that bump is going to dig into your toe and rub slightly and basically increase your chances of a blister. Now what they do instead is they bring two pieces of fabric, not touching, but they bring them close together and then they loop it. And so it just, when it's stretched, it's just one flat surface. They call it a hand link seam. Now, Belega will do that. Swiftwick will do that. Features will do that. Other guys, I'm not sure. I don't know every sock brand. I know those guys will do it. And a cheap cotton sock, like I don't want to throw any brands under the bus here, but like a cheap sock that you might go get at some discount store or something is not going to do that. So we've talked about the compression underneath here. We've talked about in the toe, that no seam. Now here's something else that's kind of cool. If you look at the heel of a running sock, it's made differently. It's made on a machine that can do something that normal socks can't do. Now, if I stretch a little bit for you here and show you the heel up close. That's perfect. You can see it. So you see this stitch right here. So the stitch kind of comes up and into a Y. You see that Y? Why do you do it? Well, here's why. When your foot is sitting in here, it creates a deeper heel pocket. So that means when your foot goes into the sock, you have not just a right angle curve, you have a deeper sitting low heel pocket that'll lock your heel into place. And that means your heel isn't going to shift inside of the sock as well. So a good sock is going to keep your midfoot from slipping by wrapping it with a little bit of compression. It's going to keep your toes blister free with omitting a seam. And then it's going to keep your heel nice and happy by creating a deep heel pocket. You can tell if it has a heel pocket by looking at the seam. Just take it out and look at it. Does it have that Y? You can see the Y right there. Okay, so that's friction. Now, second is moisture. Moisture is the other thing, friction and moisture, that cause your blisters, right? So how do we combat moisture? And that has to do with the material. So you guys, some of you might know this, some of you might not. So when you get out of the shower and you towel yourself off with a nice cotton towel, right? It absorbs your moisture, it dries you off really well. And that's great. You want to stay dry when you're running. But when you come back an hour later to that towel, it's kind of damp, right? So cotton absorbs moisture. So if you have a cotton sock on your foot, what it's going to do is when you start to sweat, it's going to absorb that moisture and then it doesn't go anywhere. It kind of stays in the sock. And over time, it's going to get a little bit damp. Now, if you combine that with a little bit of motion, that's the recipe for a blister. So what you want to do is just like you have tech shirts and tech shorts that kind of wick the moisture away, it's really important that your sock wick the moisture away. There's a couple of materials that do that. Any good running sock is going to be a synthetic sock, but you want one of two things. You want either a fully synthetic sock, and there's different blends, so I can't tell you exactly the material. Each brand is going to have their own proprietary blend that they market as being better than everybody else, but as long as it's synthetic, you're going to basically get the job of wicking and knocking moisture. The second material you can have besides a synthetic one is merino wool. Now, personally, I don't like merino wool for a couple of reasons. I like it for hiking, but for running, when it gets wet, it loses some of its structural integrity, and so you tend to wear it down. Have you ever had, not to throw Smartwool under the bus here, because they're a very successful brand, but I used to own a bunch of Smartwool socks, and they all got a hole in the toe, every single one. I have other socks that I've been wearing for years, no holes in the toe, because merino wool, when it's wet, the fibers don't hold together nearly as well. And even though it's a great wicking material, and even though wool is antimicrobial, which means your feet aren't going to stink, it's another benefit, right? You can wear a pair of wool socks for like a week and your feet aren't going to stink. Literally, you can actually do that. There'll be no stink at all. But they wear out, they're not as durable, and they stiffen up. If you ever put them in the dryer, God forbid, or just after time, they get real crimply. So let's recap, and then we'll move forward here with the different styles of socks, and we'll talk about plantar fasciitis and how a sock can help you. To recap, it's moisture and friction, and the way that you combat that is a good fit. We talked about it in the heel, the midfoot, and the toe, and then you need a synthetic or merino wicking material, and you'll be good. Now, let's talk about a couple other technologies on socks here. Here's a sock that looks probably familiar to you. Maybe not the pattern on it, but the style. You've seen this before. This is a high quality running sock. This cost about $12, $13 maybe. And it has almost all those technologies I just talked about, but this can go on either foot, left or right. And so because I know the Features brand really well, I'm just going to refer to them. They call it high performance. Now, instead, you could have a sock that is specifically made for your left and right foot. This is not, this is. Now, the technologies are basically the same, except for the main difference being that compression under the arch. And obviously, we need to know what foot it's going on to know which side to put the arch compression on, right? Now, why do you want arch compression in a sock? Is it gimmicky? Well, it does a couple of things. Remember that we want to hug the material up against the arch of the foot. And you can do that by wrapping, but you can also do it by having some compression right here, and it'll hug against the arch this way. So it's actually a blister-proof technology, but it also provides a little bit of support on your plantar fascia. So at this point, we're gonna move forward to plantar fasciitis. I'm gonna show you a really cool sock for that. And then we'll talk about compression. So plantar fasciitis, quick recap if you don't know what it is. Underneath your foot, between your heel and your toes, you have this material called your plantar fascia. And you can think of it kind of as a piece of paper. It's very flexible, but it doesn't give. It's very stiff in terms of being able to stretch. And we're not going to talk about the purpose of the plantar fascia here. If you've ever had plantar fasciitis, you probably know it. And what you want to do for that is, this is a cool little product. It actually comes in a regular package. This is just a marketing thing, but it's a prescription, right? You would never know it until you take a closer look. Then you take a closer look, and I'm going to actually turn this inside out for you guys here. So I'm going to take the sock, turn it inside out, and what you can see, I'll try to hold this up close. What you can see is in the toe, it's basically a regular sock. And as you move close to where the plantar fascia is, here, the material changes. You can tell that the weave kind of changes. And if it's on your hand, like it is mine, it's tight, okay? It's like squeezing my hand. And the constriction happens all the way basically back through the beginning of the heel. And then what this is doing is releasing tension over the heel. And then it resumes the tension when you get to the Achilles. Here's why we do this with a sock. If you've ever had plantar fasciitis, you know where the pain is. The pain is right, boom, there, underneath the heel. So we want to release compression under the heel so we're not agitating the injury. But what you want to do is actually take the plantar fascia, which is going from here to here, and there we go, here to here, and you want to lift it up into the arch of the foot. And by doing that, you're going to support it. It's not going to stretch as much, and you'll have less pain. Then your plantar fascia underneath, and then your Achilles tendon back here, they act together. So it's not going to help you much if you just compress the plantar fascia. It will help you a little, let's call it 50%, but you really want to have compression behind the Achilles as well. So here's a sock that does it right behind the Achilles here, or you can go all out and you can get a full length compression sock, which is like this. Now, lots of brands make compression socks. I'll tell you my personal opinion. There are basically 3 brands that you want to consider for compression socks, and those are Features. The other one is OS First. It's OS and then 1ST. They make extraordinarily good products. In my opinion, they're one of the best in compression. And then the other one is 2XU. It looks like 2XU. Now those guys, they're great for a couple of reasons. But what they do really well is they do graduated compression. Now this is very important, okay? If you have compression socks, if you have compression anything, listen up, because this is really important. Now, if you have a sock that is just tight everywhere, is that you've basically created a little tourniquet. And a tourniquet is going to cause the blood to pool in your foot. And that's not really good. And when you take your sock off, what you're going to see is right where the sock ended here, you'll take it off and it'll be kind of puffy above it and then compressed below it. And that's not good. You're impeding blood flow. So graduated compression is the name of the game here. Now what that means is that as you're further away from the heart, so down here, there's some compression, the most compression. And then as you move closer to the heart, the compression releases a little more, releases a little bit more. Okay, so that's called graduated compression, and it's amazing for a couple of things. It's amazing for supporting your calf and your Achilles. It's amazing for plantar fasciitis rehabilitation and prevention. It does a couple of other things. That's best saved for another talk. Performance benefits is another one, but that's not why we're here today. So we'll talk about that later. The one brand that I really love that I didn't mention was Injinji. Injinji does the toe socks, right? So you put each toe gets a little mini sock to go into, and take it or leave it. I use them when I'm doing an ultra marathon or when I know for sure that my feet are going to get wet, stream crossings. It really, really helps prevent blisters, because even when you're wearing a sock that can prevent a blister, your toes are still touching each other, and a sock can't go between your toes. So you can still get a blister between your toes. And an Injinji sock envelops your toe, and there's basically no blisters at all. And here's a little crazy thing for you. I'm going to let you know. This is crazy. And I'm not saying this because I'm trying to sell you socks, because I don't sell socks anymore. I just want you to know this. So if you look at the package here, this is insane, okay? This is insane. If you look at the package, there's a lifetime guarantee. That's super cool, okay? Because what that means is if you ever, if your sock breaks down, now I'm not working for Features right now, so I can't say this as a representative, but when I was, what that means is that you turn it over and you get in touch with them. If your sock breaks down for a number of reasons, you call them up and they will replace your sock for you for life. No receipt, no questions asked, and they'll just mail it to you. That's pretty amazing. And that's the mark of somebody who's doing a great product, that they'll stand behind it that well. So I urge you to just invest in yourself and go get like 3 pairs of kick-ass socks, because they will prevent your blisters. They'll help with your performance. They'll feel great, and you'll feel like Superman. Maybe like this guy here, Bob Kennedy. He's basically Superman in my opinion. So thank you guys again for watching, and I will catch you on our next training. I hope that you guys got a lot out of this training. And if you want to keep up with your training, then I invite you to come to our completely free webinar. You can find the link for it down below, and you just sign up and you come attend, and we're going to talk about the cutting edge science, how to structure your training, the mindset behind elite level performance, and lots more. And then after that, or before if you want, you can come join our private Facebook group. Now in this group, you'll find a link below here to join, and in the group we're going to do the same things. We're going to be talking about cutting edge mindset. You're going to get some free trainings, and you're going to get to connect with like-minded people. So I'd love to see you in there. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.